Hello and welcome to NewsClick. You're watching Present, Past and the Future, and I'm Nilanjan Mukhopadhyay. The year 2019 is the golden jubilee year of Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi. The university was established after Parliament passed an act in 1966, and finally in 1969, the university got rolling. It immediately, within a few years, became very important, became some kind of an educational icon. People got attracted to it for a variety of reasons, that it infused new ideas in existing university curricula. It introduced the notion of interdisciplinary approach, science policy, for instance. These kind of things had not really been studied at an advanced level, only maybe high research, but not in the university as part of regular courses. A lot of people, who used to work, Indian social scientists who were working in very prestigious universities abroad, got very excited by the idea of Jawaharlal Nehru University and resigned their jobs and came and took up positions here. The university in the early years, right from the 70s, the first decade, it established itself a couple of things. Within students, a very strong culture of gender equality, very strong interaction, which was not existence, between teachers and the faculty. Completely, it's not the kind of the hierarchical system which was there in existing universities at that particular time. Out of all this emerged radical politics among teachers and among students. Radical politics meaning that the heart of the students of the university bled for the poorest of the land. It was not a surprise that during emergency, the police clamped down very heavily and arrested a large number of students who were active in various radical student organizations. These days, quite often the term Jholawala is used in a very derogatory manner, but possibly JNU contributed to the origin of this word, because that became a kind of a culture of that anybody who was going around in fairly informal looking clothes with a sling bag on the shoulder carrying textbooks and notepads would invariably be a student of JNU. It was quite natural, that when this BJP government was formed in 2014, that JNU would come under attack. Right from the beginning, for a right-wing government, a university which had been known for progressive thinking and progressive education policies would come under attack, and they got an opportunity in 2016 during the students' protest questioning the Kashmir policy of the government. Thereafter, JNU has been constantly in news. It has been attacked not just by the government and by the ruling party, but supporters of it. JNU is also used as a metaphor for everything which the youth of this country or the students of this country disagree with. A certain kind of unitary nationalism has been forced onto the nation, and it's not just JNU which has been attacked, but the entire higher education has come under attack. Various other universities have also under attack. The entire university system is being sought to be changed so that a specific kind of product can be delivered or produced from the universities, who do not question, who do not seek multiple, provide multiple solutions for very complex issues. Now, to discuss this entire issue of not just Jawaharlal Nehru University in 50 years after its completion, but also various other things, I am joined by two very eminent people. I have Maitreyee Choudhary, who is a professor of sociology in Jawaharlal Nehru University, also has been a student of JNU, my senior in the university. Atul Sood, who is the president of the Jawaharlal Nehru University Teachers Association, not a student of JNU. So we have, between the three of us, a very interesting mixture. A professor who has not been a student of JNU, but teaches there and is now the president of Teachers Association. Maitreyee Choudhary, student of JNU and who continues to be associated with JNU, and I, who was a student of JNU and have basically owe my whatever achievement I have done primarily to having been in the university at that particular time. Maitreyee, I want to begin with you because there is a certain amount of romance involved with JNU of what it used to be. Whenever people like us go back to the campus, you are very privileged that you continue to live there. Whenever we go to the campus, we hear that this is not what JNU used to be during your time. Now, when your time, it's also your time, you live in two different times. Now, your past in JNU, you know what it was JNU, what the idea of JNU for today's audiences, viewers, how can you explain in a nutshell that what was the idea of JNU?
Yeah, thank you, Nilanjan. Yes, indeed, I'm very privileged. I came to JNU in 1977, post-emergency. Those were very intense times. I came completely apolitical, with no sense of what those various organizations which had their posters all over meant. The very first night that I came, everybody said they were going to protest against the Shah. I didn't know who the Shah was, but I accompanied them. And within a month, I knew the history of Iran. You know, so in a certain sense, it was passionate times, very informed times. So much of our learning stemmed from two sources, the classroom, but I would say definitely from outside the classroom, because there would be discussions.
Especially the hostel messes,
the hostels,
late in the night after dinner.
I remember a time when I think Professor Rajni Kothari had come to what was called the lecture 3, right, and the windows would be packed. Now, it is amazing. He wasn't exactly
old
campus. He wasn't exactly a scintillating speaker, but people would come. You know, they wanted to hear what he said. So much of our learning took place. Now, this atmosphere of which I am a product was, I think, in large sense created by the students. So one owes a lot to that kind of assertive politics of diverse hues, great debates between different kinds of groups. I also had the privilege, much later, of joining JNU as a teacher in 1990 and getting academically interested in the history of JNU. So I looked at, you know, you mentioned that it became an iconic status and the attack more recently. But even in the early years, if you look at the parliamentary debates post 1969, there was this feeling this was a white elephant. There was clearly great skepticism from conservative forces.
Right.
Even in those early days, because they felt they really didn't know what kind of saying was coming.
Because JNU was always a heretic, you know, always a contrarian. It gave up many voices which spoke against the system.
Just one more point here. One was this. The other was, which is very interesting, that if you look at the vision or the JNU statutes of that time or the early debates, whether of the first Vice Chancellor or of the President of India or all the other dignitaries, there were certain themes that they were very interested. For those who accuse the university about anti-nationalism today, it would be very interesting to go back to those debates and the legacy that JNU has had in the last 50 years, because they actually wanted to look at this university as a national university. As an old student and as Atul would know today, we have students from every part of the country, across every region. So it had the idea of various strata of society, diverse, as well as, you know, questions of inequality, people who come in over there. So the idea of a university being a universal, not parochial. One of the challenges of contemporary education is
not being parochial and also not being the preserve of the elite.
Absolutely. So it opened up. It opened up to all sections of society. There was a admission policy, which, as you would be familiar, even the students had a role to play. Yes. A very complex, nuanced.
There used to be students' faculty committee.
The students' faculty committee. I, for instance, came from Shillong, which was supposed to be a backward region, but since I went to what was considered an elite school, so the 3 marks I should have got, if it didn't win, was deducted. So it was worked out at that kind of level, thanks to the students, I would say, in particular. So this, the idea of the national in a very progressive, secular, and remember that the international school, the School of International Studies, predated the formal functioning of JNU, an international vision, solidarity with African societies, Asian, erstwhile colonized society, and the point that you mentioned about interdisciplinarities. I would feel, looking back, that it lived up to its image, that we have people across board, whether as journalists, in the bureaucracy, in the media, in the civil society, social movements, who have drawn from JNU.
Even politics.
Even politics, so you have, so it has been very successful. We also, since there's so much buzz about, ranking today, JNU has done even in this present regime, when it has been attacked like this, we've had been recognized as one of the best universities. So it is actually an extraordinary situation that probably one of the universities who've done so well in a very short span of time are being asked what you have not done or what you've done wrong.
In the last 5 years, it has been in the epicenter of news for some reason or the other, whether for student politics or whether for teachers who are, been in agitations, constantly locking horns with a vice chancellor who doesn't seem to be seeing any reason, As a representative of the Teachers Association, what kind of attacks have been mounted by the system on JNU and why?
That's a good question, and Maitreyee has given a good perspective on how to look at the issues here. But let me begin by saying that before I come to what has happened in JNU, I want to pinpoint 3 issues. One, that if you look at the current regime, how does it look at the role of the relationship between education and society and higher education and society in particular? Two, in that vision of relationship between education and society, what kind of higher educational institution they want to create? And the third, who are the participants, who are the actors in this higher educational institution? So there is a link between these 3 as far as this regime is concerned. And the way they are dealing with JNU or whatever they are intervening in JNU is linked with their imagining and understanding on all the 3 issues that I have talked about. And if you look at what has happened in JNU and what is the outcome or what is the attempt? You said, why? If I was to put it in one line, I would say that making higher education available and accessible, but quality higher education accessible and available to ordinary young men and women of this country is something that is being taken away. So this dream, this possibility that people coming from far corners of India, people who might be first generation families coming to higher education, people who have not heard of universities or seen universities in the regions that they come from, you've talked about it earlier, to get access not to public education, but best quality public education. That dream is being shattered in a very systematic, coherent and an institutional manner over the last 4.5 years. And the attack on JNU has to be seen in how this dream is being taken away.
A campaign has been mounted that JNU has done nothing but producing communists.
Right.
That these are people, who believe in dismembering the nation, that these are people who are opposed to the idea of a unified India. It's a very simple way of saying that, unified India. They have even all these slogans, called JNU is Tukde Tukde Gang. These are the kind of hate slogans which are there. Now, to what extent is there that JNU is a hotbed of communists?
JNU, let me answer it 2 parts. The first is that when they're talking about this Tukde Tukde gang, that is the discourse through which you destroy the dream I'm talking about. Right. Because if you don't make that connect, then you can't say, okay, I'm going to take away access to higher education to the ordinary young men and women of this country. You can't do that. So you have
to have a
narrative.
Reason for
it. Yeah, you have a narrative. So the narrative you construct is the so-called Tukde Tukde narrative, within which you cause the destruction.
First discredit, then destroy.
First discredit, yeah. And I don't think that they have been successful at all, because if you look at the other side of these last 5 years, I must underline and highlight the resistance that the JNU students and teachers and the JNU community at large has given to this attempt to destroy a public university like JNU. So therefore, I don't see that there has been any success, or they might be feeling that they had some success in doing it, but they haven't. Let me also say that the means that this resistance has chosen is also very interesting, and it reflects what JNU stood for. JNU has always stood for constitutional value. JNU has always stood for, public participation or, democratic participation. And these have been the two key pillars through which the resistance has been constructed. Everything and anything that the resistance has done in terms of what has been done, and I would need a few minutes to say what has been done in the last 5 years to destroy this dream of a public university. But whatever has been done to destroy this dream, the resistance has been based on solid pillars of constitutional values and public participation or democratic participation of the community. There is nothing been done. So this idea that, they're producing communists and they're producing, I think that essentially that means that the idea of, democratic participatory governance structure is something that you wish to challenge, and obviously you need nomenclatures to do that. And anywhere in the world, universities do, unless universities give dreams to people, I think young people need to dream, and they will need to dream about the societies they come from and where do they want to take the societies. So if people come and have these dreams associated with different ideological frameworks, I think dreaming is extremely useful and extremely essential for a good university. And JNU students have not been lagging behind to dream about a good society, a society which is more equal, a society which is more, more just. And that dream has still inspired the JNU students. And I would say we are proud of the dream that inspires us.
Right. Maitreyee, looking beyond JNU and trying to connect what is happening within JNU or what is being the way in which JNU is being targeted, as Atul was saying, let's try to see that what is happening. We now have a government which is backed by what we call as the Sangh Parivar. This is not the first time that this political force has been in government. It is even before the 6 years between 98 and 2004 when Mr. Vajpayee was the Prime Minister. There were incidents when these people were in very important positions. During the Janata Party period, they were part of the government. At that point also, there was a concerted attack on education systems. They have been in state governments in various states right from the 1990s onwards. Wherever there have been, education has been the first target which has been sought to be tampered with. The nature of history, what is being taught, has been changed. So what really is the problem of the right-wing forces with the education curriculum as it existed? With the structure of the universities, why is it that education becomes the first target?
I think the reason is quite basic, that these kind of forces are basically anti-democratic. Anti-critical, anti-constitutional values, and they would like to undermine, because they see this as a site for, the 2 points that Atul mentioned, access and high quality. That here you have people who are developed citizenry in a certain sense, who are able to articulate a particular point of argument with solid facts and logical coherence, And I think this is something they are uncomfortable with. So they have a black and white understanding of education. They have a very different understanding of what would be traditionally called the democratic pillars of a democracy, like your academia and the media, where you're looking at them as critical, from a critical perspective. They see both the academia and the media as affirmation. So you would say, ki media mein, why don't you show good news? Or they'll tell the academia, ki, like I've gone to PLCs, ki aap log bahut cynical hai, social scientists, You must say what good things are happening. So the assumption that we are propaganda machines rather than critical thinkers is fundamental to their understanding of nationalism, understanding or no understanding of their history.
The basic idea of the intelligentsia is to point out the areas of deficiency,
Absolutely.
not to drumbeat on what has been achieved.
Yeah, and that
but
would
to
happen.
Tell that how you can become better. That is, I think, one of the important, roles that the intelligentsia should play and has historically played everywhere. Atul, if one actually looks at in the last 5 years, it is now very close to the end of Modi years, 5 years of Mr. Modi as Prime Minister. Within education, I was just trying to do my own homework to find out that what all has happened. Few things strike me. That one, first of all, there is a greater shrinking autonomy of public universities, especially those in the area of social sciences. Finance has been curtailed, public financing, and they are being encouraged that you go and take loans. So it becomes more market driven. So you ensure that you actually restrict universities. You also have now, you're creating these select elite universities, non-existent universities like institutions like Reliance Industries, has some non-existent institution. It has been given a tag of eminent institution. And you have also the UGC. UGC, we have always talked in terms of improving, of reforms in UGC, but this is being dumped for a completely different thing. It's quite possible that it may not be possible in the term of this government because Parliament has not been able to pass it. But nonetheless, there has been a very concerted attempt in all these things. Now, in the last 5 years, if you try to review that which are the areas where actually education has been sought to be tampered.
Let me actually, in fact, you raised the issues, but let me provide a narrative and link these bullet points. I mean, clearly, if you look at the essence of the higher education policy of this regime, it is, number one, it suggests that actually if you want quality education, then it can only be provided by private players. So you get autonomy, privatization, and quality or excellence linked as one. Moment you become a public university, that public university cannot be, need not be someone pursuing excellence and providing quality education. Actually, this is inbuilt in the framework that they have come up on higher education. So A, the private universities are the ones can provide excellence. So moment you become excellent, you should depend on your own resources. The public funding will withdraw. Public funding need not be supporting that. Number two, public funding will go to other universities such that they are completely subservient to the central government. The nature of funding, the reporting mechanisms, how the Prime Minister MHRD becomes the centerpiece through which funding is given. So moment public funds are given, then the universities become the mouthpiece or subservient to the regime that is in power, not something where they can operate on their own. Three, if you look at that, where do these reach out? I mean, in the sense that where do the public universities, who participates in it? Clearly, it's built in a mechanism both in terms of how the UGC regulatory frameworks have been done, the way in which funding has been provided, the way that there is a lack of expansion of higher education, how the enrollment rates have changed. If you look at the range of indicators, the essence of the direction of change is that this has to be available to only a small section of the society, because the pursuit of excellence, which requires participation of everyone and anyone, in the sense the larger the size of participation, higher the excellence, they don't understand excellence through that. They understand excellence basically because the universities are to cater to the needs of the market. The universities are not to cater to the needs of the society. Society's needs are going to be met by whatever their ideological understanding is about the society and the instruments and the institutions they create to meet those needs of societies. So universities are going to be just nuts and bolts or very functional in terms of this larger objective of making India whatever, a part of the the global world. And therefore, private investment, bringing quality, skill, and the whole discourse on skill that arises out of that is where the private universities will locate. Public funding will be withdrawn. Public funding will be given only to meet the token purposes of creating this large labor force, if I have to put it in one line, which meets the needs of the global investor, which meets the big investor in India. And the discourse of skill, that is, around which this argument is being built, is complete humbug, because really there is no skill creation, there is no thinking about skill. And skill requires creativity, imagination, and critical thinking. But all three do not attract this regime. So really, its skill is all about doing repetitive tasks. And look at the skill policy, it aspires to create self-employment. So if skill generation is for self-employment and universities are going to be part of the cog in the wheel for these larger purposes, just imagine what kind of dreams you can construct and build in universities. And JNU still creates this hope of building a society.
A better society.
Exactly. And that imagining of this society and that potential of that happening to be true in the conversations that happen in university is really, in JNU, is really troublesome. So therefore, there's a connect between, and I'm not defending here what's happening in JNU, which often says, because we want to keep things in JNU from as they were in the past.
No, we're not.
I'm willing to actually have an open-ended, good democratic discussion on how the JNU type of university should reinvent itself.
Become better than what they have
exactly.
been. The solution is to improve it, not to close it down.
Yeah, exactly. But so that doesn't seem to be happening. So the attack is that whatever happened in the past, and how has the attack happened? I want to say two, three lines on that. One, you want to impact recruitment. Two, you want to impact intake, and 3, you want to alter the teaching learning environment. So these are the 3 pillars of any university. Who will come and teach? What are the kind of people?
Right.
How the selection?
Who will come and study?
Who will come and study? I mean, we have litigation, and the courts have said, 86% seat cut. Then if you look at that, there's a huge withdrawal of resources from
Teachers can't take more than X number of teachers,
not only that, in the last year, number of seats that were available for the people who are coming with, marginal groups, those seats have been left vacant, and in an implicit sense, been either made available to non-reserved categories or been kept vacant. All right. And the teaching learning environment is a mechanism where the culture and ethos of teaching learning should be where you don't question, you don't, the deliberation should be in a more like a traditional school kind of pattern, and not like a university where students and teachers stand on an equal footing.
Maybe
a very quick word from you, Maitreyee, we have to kind of sum up the discussion. We talk about our profession, that there has been a general dumbing down of the media in the last 2 decades, especially with the advent of television. There is also a dumbing down of education, especially in the last 5 years. We are in a season when we are going to have elections very soon, maybe in a matter of few weeks. The future of education, from listening to the 2 of you, does not look very bright. It looks very uncertain, irrespective of even if there is a regime change, because regimes are not generally we have seen that they continue with educational policies of the previous regime, because it's a very convenient way of controlling dissent, controlling fresh way of looking at it and not questioning what they do. Is actually education, higher education, actually future very uncertain?
It is very uncertain, but I think we have a role to play in society. One of the things which has struck me is that very often when we talk about public education, we are talking about it in terms of access, which is absolutely right. And the point that Atul made, that there's no dichotomy between skill and access. You can have excellent quality education, but which is accessible to all. The problem with JNU is that it precisely did that. What I really hope happens in future is that we have to seriously think about some kind of autonomous regulative structure, even for public universities, to ensure the kind of autonomy that we can imagine for a better university to be in.
So that's the struggle which we are going to all collectively wage.
For me, the hope lies in the resistance that the students, particularly the young people of this country, are providing to the change in the education, which is not something that we agree with.
Well, I hope that we are able to resist this. Thank you for watching this. While listening to Atul Sood and Maitreyee Choudhary, I got reminded of a sequence from Satyajit Ray's Hirak Raja Deshe, where the despot king one day wakes up and tells his assistant to shut down all schools in the kingdom. He says that, why are you shutting down schools? He says, because in schools people study, and if the people study, they know, and if they know more, then they obey less. So I think that is what we are heading into, that you know more, so you're going to question more, and the regime does not want people to question. Thank you for watching this program.